Hi there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com here with an updated video to the event deck that I gave my strong opinions about, that I was not pleased with it for $75 being released, and someone's counter arguments was A, that you got about $150 worth of cards, and B, that it was a highly playable deck in Standard or in Modern. And I'd really like to refute both of those claims right now, as first of all, the event deck is now worth a total of $64 if you sold all the pieces to it. So, hate to say I told you so, but that is exactly what I'm going to say here, that I knew this was going to happen. The problem was these weren't selling very well, and so the vendors started opening them and at least trying to recruit as much money as possible. Coming from our store, we've sold one total to the entire public. Just no one wants to buy a $75 product. It's not the people that usually buy $75 products are like from the vaults or the Commander's Arsenal. Competitive players do not want intro decks. You're not going to want to take an intro deck to try to get into Modern. And so this was pretty terribly sold, and I knew this was going to happen, and I'm hoping that this can kind of reach Wizards so that they can actually do things properly. What they really need to do was reprint some really, really key cards for the Modern players, and at least if they did bomb, that the vendors would be able to recoup their losses, and this one's not even going to do that. Anyway, well, let's pull up the prices here. These are going to come from the TCG. So I have it up here, and this will go by mid prices, and you got to think these are going to continue to fall as more vendors through desperation or whatever want to recoup some of their losses and open some of these to try to sell. I mean, eventually within a year or 2 years, these will go up in value, but at the moment, I can only see these going down. That's been the trends for these. So we had Elspeth. When this guy, I think when the deck first came out, Elspeth was a lot higher than $10.25. So you're getting back roughly $10. And these are vendors that are selling this, keep in mind. If we go by low prices, the lowest price right now for an Elspeth is $8.50. Now, Sword of Feast and Famine was the other card that was a chase card out of it, which was, I believe at the time, was around $25-30, which is now down to $10. So if you add up all of this, I mean, you even look at the stuff that it really hit, like Caves of Koios, and the big one was Windbrace Heights. Windbrace Heights, I believe, is a $6 card before this event deck, and now it's down to $1.42 and as low as 79 cents. We also have the one thing that has kept its value is the Path to Exile, which is still a nice $4, and you get, I think, 2 of them in the deck. So I mean, that's the greatest card that's actually kept its value. Isolated Chapel will continue to fall, $1 and $1.69 respectively, and the Inquisitions will continue to fall, I would think, as well. As more of these are opened, more of these will get into circulation. So even these will continue to fall in value. So anyway, yep. Again, this is, so now you're buying a deck where you can actually buy the entire pieces of for less. So now people aren't going to buy the deck for sure because they want to get into Modern for $75. They can actually build a more expensive deck than what this one gives them buying the pieces. Second of all, I'd like to argue that this is not a competitive deck in the Modern metagame. Tokens is okay versus Affinity, but it's 6s. They're both about 50-50. Depends on how Affinity draws, and it depends on how Tokens draws. Tokens is actually absolutely terrible versus Malaripod. I would go as far as to say that Tokens cannot beat Malaripod. And also, when it comes to, I guess with Affinity, we'll go back and say that it does have some hate in the form of at least Kataki in the sideboard. And I guess against Pod, it's got Relic of Progenitus, but Relic is okay versus Pod, but it's not that good. And Burton Forest Tender is okay versus certain decks as well, but again, it's a sideboard that I ended up cutting from Soul Sisters that just didn't have enough implications. Now, the Dismembers, it's okay versus Twin, but again, Twin has so many ways around it. If they know you're holding a Dismember through Gitaxian Probe, they're not going to try to go off on that turn. Plus, to me, it looks like that Twin will easily just aggro this deck out before you can do much about it. I mean, you have Path to Exile and Dismember, which is your only, redemption against, your only hope, I guess, against the Splinter Twin. And a 2 of Inquisition will not do it, especially if you're going to rely on the, where'd they go? The Tidal or Scholars, but it doesn't even look like Tidal or Scholars are in this one. So never mind. There's not even. Oh yeah, there's 3 or the 3 Tidal of Scholars. Now I guess Soul Warden does stop you Exarch from going off, but it's only a 2 of. It's just, I think, very not very well equipped to actually handle Pod or Affinity or Splinter Twin for that matter. So anyway, what this should have had for an actual deck to, if players wanted to be competitive and didn't feel like they were ripped off after they bought this, is it should have had the fetch lands in it. That way everyone would feel okay if they would have got marsh flats. It would help Modern out by actually circulating some more marsh flats, and everyone would be happy. And it would still hit its goal, and people would still have access to this. The whole worry was if this had a chase card in it that was really good, then the vendors would just buy them all up, and no players would actually be able to get them for 75. Well, now they're not going to be able to sell them for 75. I've heard stories that these are being sold as low as 50 bucks on eBay, and they're having a hard time selling them on there as well. So again, back over to the metagame, if we go down, the Rock is probably its best matchup, but again, I don't think it's okay versus the Rock. I think the Rock has ways around it to actually beat it down. Like this has, if we pull up the Rock here, it's got just tokens do very well. Tokens block the Goyfs, and you have like the Zealous Persecutions that take care of Bob and get in there, swing in there for lethal. And then you also have all the tokens that protect you against Liliana of the Veil. But cards like Maelstrom Pulse can be very hard for that deck to handle. Abrupt Decay is actually very good against taking out either the Honor of the Peers or the Intangible Virtues. And I guess, you know, they'll have some hate sideboard as far as the Drown in Sorrows and other cards that just, yeah, maybe it's just Drown in Sorrow and Golgari Charm that come in and just completely wrecks the deck. So there's the top 4 of decks so far. I'm gonna go out and say that it's actually unwinnable versus Tron. Tron will be too quick for it before it'll actually get its combo out. And if you resolve anything, I guess you'd have the Path to Exiles for the Wormcoil engines. But one of my hardest matchups when I played the Soul Sisters pretty religiously was Tron. Tron, I'd have to rely on my sideboard through Stony Silences and whatnot to actually take care of it. And I guess you could add Stony Silences pretty easy to the black-white tokens, but again, the event deck does not come with it. All right, so then we can go on to Mono Red Burn. Okay, that's a matchup that actually is good versus. UR Delver, I would say that, again, it's about 50-50. It's not the greatest. And UW Control, I'd go out and say that it's unwinnable as well. UW Control will just eat the deck alive. Scape Shift's going to be too fast for it. Storm is just going to absolutely wreck it. And then Jund is kind of the same situation that the Rock is. They're basically the same deck. And then U-White Tron is another unwinnable matchup for the tokens. Merfolk, I would say, is in Merfolk's favor. So we even look at the top 10 decks of the Modern, and it really isn't competitive. I guess it'd be competitive against Blue Moon. It might be competitive. It's not competitive against Infect, I would say. Infect just needs to get a Blighted Agent out, and it'll be very hard for the deck to actually deal with it. And again, I don't know. That's just my feelings about it. If they were going to actually make a $75 deck, that it did need to hold its value past a month, and this one failed to do so. And I guess this is where I'll dig my heels in and say this is exactly the foresight that Wizards had with its past products. It's just, it didn't do, I don't think it got enough people into Modern like they thought it would. And it's mostly vendors. If you look at this, you come over here and you're seeing who's actually selling these. Like this one particularly, I looked at the price here. We have this Rockstar game is selling 46 of them. 46 at $1.43. So that means they've opened up a ton of product. That's at least 10 of them, at least 12 of them they've opened up of the event decks, and they're just selling them all. I've seen as high as 60, so people opened up 15 of these and are just trying to sell the contents of them. And unfortunately, that's, at least we could have got Marsh Flats down like Quetzalcoatl has dropped. Again, you're going to see where the drop comes here. Well, Quetzalcoatl, I guess, has never really been expensive. I guess what this does for Standard, though, is it keeps Quetzalcoatl down for the M15. But in M15, these are going to be open like crazy as well. So I'm going to think that Caves are going to continue to drop in price, especially because of the event deck and all the reprints it has had. So anyway, that's my 2 cents about the deck, and hopefully it can save you $74.98 by offering my 2 cents. And whatnot, so that you can actually go and buy a competitive Modern deck for way less than waste your money on this this garbage here. Anyway, this has been Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com. Thanks for watching.